New year, new beginnings, but it's the same old passion for the world of sport that we share. And from a football perspective, we ended 2025 with the Warriors getting booted out of the AFCON finals in Morocco. They continue. We're down to the final two, and it's going to be a cracker. The hosts of Morocco taking on Senegal. Zimbabwe, long since, it's been 2 weeks since they've come back home, and we're going to talk about them a little bit, but we're going to focus as well as we build towards the 2026 Castle Premier Soccer League season, because we love our football. And, 29 November, that's the last time we got to watch domestic top-flight football. And we're going to be unpacking that as we take a peek through the transfer window, looking at the ins and outs in terms of what the clubs are doing. We know we've got teams that have been promoted, Hard Rock in particular, coming out of Kwekwe. They've been amongst the busier of the teams. The Bulawayo Chiefs bouncing back. Uncertainty around the Hunters. Will they or will they not play in the 2026 Castle Alaga Premier Soccer League? And Agama of joining the big boys of Zimbabwean football. And talking about big boys, we've got the heavy hitters as we begin these conversations around the beautiful game on the Game Changers, a podcast brought to you by Zim Papers Sports Hub. I'm Mr Tich, and I've got the gang in the studio. I've got award-winning journalist, 5-time Sports Journalist of the Year, reigning sports journalist, right? Langton Nyakwenda.
Thank you, Mr. Tich.
What does it take to be an award-winning sports journalist?
It takes a lot of investment in your work.
In your work?
Yeah, research more. These days it's no longer breaking stories, about analyzing trends and also going out there. Stories, you get exclusive out there.
I'm picking up on exclusive. Can we count on exclusives on the podcast? I see you're wearing your Liverpool jersey. What have you made of Liverpool's form so far in the EPL? We're just going to touch briefly on that. We're going to focus a lot on our local game, but obviously, it's off-season here in Zimbabwe. We're paying attention to the AFCON, some of the other leagues around the world. Liverpool, you're happy with onslaught and what is done with your team?
Yeah, obviously, being the defending champions, there was bound to be pressure in the title, and there were bound to be ups and downs. The issue to do with Salah busting out in that mixed zone interview. I would have thrown me under and stuff like that. But I can see they are coming back to their best. If you watch the game against Barnsley, the type of goals that were scored, Wits, Soboslai, the other one, Frimpong, those were kind of exquisite goals. So I'm sure watch out for Liverpool in the remaining games.
And of course, we've got Tawanda Munthali, producer, with the ZTM Prime, journalist as well. You've been laid back, right? No football to produce during the off-season. How have you been finding?
It has been a slow start to the year, but a busy one on the transfer market, a number of clubs making signings, and maybe that's something that we need to see. Akuna January, kuni mama clubs, but kuni mamu 3. And January disease, but I hope it's just change as time goes on.
But my game changers. No holds barred. But anyway, we're going to be focusing a lot on the ins and outs in terms of the transfer window, focusing primarily on Zimbabwean players both at home and abroad. I think signings that we saw in this window was Daniel Msendami making his way to Orlando Pirates, one of the big giants in South Africa. A big one for Daniel, especially after his exploits at the Africa Cup of Nations.
Yeah, sure, Mr. Tich. I think it was a step forward for the young boy. After that against Egypt, in fact, he was one of the outstanding players at AFCON. The matches that he played, and it was bound to happen that a bigger team in South Africa or outside after him. So we are happy for him. He's now playing for Soweto Giants, Orlando
Pirates.
The Buccaneers. One time every time it builds his confidence when he comes back here to play for the Warriors.
All right, speaking about the Warriors, we're going to start with a player who missed out on the Africa Cup of Nations. There was a lot of noise around him. He was complaining, suggesting that maybe, he wasn't treated fairly. He's been injured, I think, since November, hasn't played a game for his side in the English Premier League. That is as the Wolves, but we understand that it could be set for a return to France. He was with Stade Reims before, but it looks like he's going to join Paris FC, a team that we're not too familiar with, but they've got a rich history. 46 years out of the spotlight in terms of the French top flight Ligue 1. But Munetsi, Wolves, it hasn't really worked out for him, and there's been a lot of talk around his injuries and his lack of form and his fallout with Vitor Pereira. And Vitor Pereira was the one who actually brought him in. Tawanda, what have you made of the circus surrounding Marshall Munetsi, especially that drama that we saw during the Africa Cup of Nations, the back and forth between him and Zifa, and now him possibly going to Paris FC? We understand it's going to be a loan deal, no option to buy. Paris FC, they're the new money bags in France, recently beating Paris Saint-Germain. But a step up, a step down, career pivot. What do you make of this possible move for Marshall?
Firstly, it's a step up for Marshall because he hasn't he hasn't been playing much for Wolves, especially after Vitor Pereira left, and a lot has been happening to him. Remember the whole AFCON sagas that happened. He's followed with the Warriors head coach Super Mario, and now I think getting a chance to move to a league that he's familiar with, to a new club, new environment for him, starting the year on a high, I think it gives him enough room to refresh, to reset, and to maybe just try to put his house in order, because he hasn't been getting much game time for Wolves. And if you look at Wolves last year, under Vitor Pereira, he played up front, a new position, a new role for him, totally new role for him. And for my fans of Wolves, obviously they'll judge him makati giramunhu muchitanda se anonza magobhora nichi but magobhora kana mari zacho atiri kuda isusu asiri ari kuti ari kunza. And obviously for iye paakwanisa kuendawo kupari FC manje zvakuchinja akunotambawo pai mugomba make maanga ajaira muyamya, and it's a league that everyone knows. Vanhu vese vari ikoko vanoziva maqualities ake, and for a club ichangobva mukutanga, club ichakabva ro big team, kuwanawo munhu anenge mashawa, I think zvinowedzerawo maari, and iye zvinomupawo mukana wekuti anyatsorakidza vanhu kuti ndichingori the same mashawa uyawe. And takatasara nezvinhu, kune zvinhu obva zvida kuitika. Tine maAFCON qualifiers later in the year, anenge akwanisa kukwana mukana wekuti asi wodzoka kunational team, because ipapa anga akakwara, and it's not guaranteed kuti achangobva kwaanobva kuti asi ostart.
Maybe just to interject, he's still injured. Because actually, right now, the Herald has written a story right now. It's a breaking story. Because Paenda to Paris, I released a statement with Wolves. He has moved to Paris, but he's still recovering from a cough of injuries. He's still injured.
Langton, let's stay on that, because that was a big bone of contention in the back and forth that happened. That almost threatened to derail our Africa Cup of Nations campaign. Marshall saying he had recovered, saying, sort of making insinuations that he was being blacklisted or he was being targeted. Now, he hasn't played a game for Wolves. I think we saw Tawanda Chirewa going back straight after AFCON, came off the bench. He's been named in the squad a couple of times. And now, with this breaking news that's coming out of Paris FC and Wolves that he's injured, what does this, how do you unpack all this mess now? And what is it going to affect his move to Paris FC, this injury?
No, I think when they made the negotiations and stuff, White was already injured, and they know he's going to recover at some point. And also, it's 29, and with Pronenge trajectory of Paris FC, Vice of Marine Red Bull, the Arnold family, at 29, Marshall Munetsi could be a leader in the next 1 or 2 years. Which build a squad that can challenge and a PSG and a Monaco. But I think going back to the Warriors issue, the Wula Balu about Marshall Munetsi, I think Marshall Munetsi initially was injured. But when Mr AFCON and also Uri vice captain, it's not Wadza. And also you think my fans are not was Snabaji Warriors. So initially I think in his mind and the Wolves, they didn't want him to come for AFCON. But on second thoughts, it's a big tournament.
So
And
it was
also-
it was bad PR from Marshall and his team.
Yeah, maybe,
In
but-
trying to say, you know what, misplaced passion, and trying to prove that he cares about the Warriors or that he's passionate and he was committed. You know, then insinuating, because I think we saw him with Robert Marawa from South Africa. It was quite an extensive interview. He was saying he was ready to play, saying, you know, he hadn't really had too much interaction with Coach Mario. So, I mean, now as we look towards the future, and obviously on the Game Changers podcast, we're trying to look in on the transfer market. We had to give the context of what happened at the Africa Cup of Nations. But I'll ask you what I asked Tawanda. A step up for Marshall, a step down, or just a career pivot?
Yeah, I think looking at Marshall Munetsi with the time that he had at Stade Reims, I think he made quite a number of appearances. He was a key player there. He's familiar with French football. So for him to go back to France, kwajaira kutamba, was kwasho even before the injury. Angane limited game time. I remember Pazuta injured Pacho, angamtamba 6 minutes, the previous 60 minutes, angasatamba 90 minutes. Especially Pazuta Robo Edwards. So it was inevitable he had to move for him to get him.
And how much
more
is
game time.
like the fact that obviously it looks increasingly likely with each passing round of matches in the English Premier League that Wolves are going to get relegated? How much do you think maybe that's a factor in him moving away or engineering a move, even though he's injured?
Even before stoyenda unatawana Wolves are number 20 in EPL. Paris yacho also steering relegation. So I'm going to move French.
Saka haisi factor, haisi factor.
Yeah, but Guras, takatasa imove yake iwenda France ka. I think ne experience yesayinayo ne term yesayatambira France, and he's a player that is coming from the English Premier League, one of the best leagues in the world. Obviously zvinhu zvakachinja, and munhu wekuti ane zvinhu zvobho zvaitika kumashure, ane zvinhu zvaada kugadzirisa, ada kufaitira for Warriors chase because ada kudzoka kunational team, and munhu wekuti ada kuedza kureviva career yake because pangati asvika apa zvazvatodhakwa, and uyu saka ndioga mukana waita se wawana kuti arevive career yake. And obviously I know kuti Marshall being Marshall anotozama nepese paanogona kunza pa good performances, and for his new club I think it's a good signing for them. Because vari kufighta relegation.
Also reading that your Paris yacho they've set aside some 100 and something million euros for my transfers achauya pamberi apa, which means it's not Marshall alone, pana achauya ku Paris. So they are building a team that will compete in the next few coming seasons.
Those are sports up. Today, yes. So you can get a copy of the Herald. I think the Saturday Herald tomorrow. You get more details on that transfer of Marshall Munetsi possibly going to Paris FC on a loan deal. Interestingly enough, there's no option to buy at the moment. But you know, if the team gets relegated, that could change the context of this whole transfer saga. Let's move on. Let's talk about another Warrior. He's a Warrior who's been sparkling in Scotland at Motherwell. Tawanda Maswani. I think a lot of Zimbabweans will still have that memory of him dancing, having his happy feet around the South African defenders. And I'll tell you this, guys. You know what? I think if you're a Zimbabwean footballer playing international football, I think there are fewer countries that you could score a goal against and get yourself more love than South Africa. Yeah. You know, when you look at the rivalry between the Warriors and Bafana, you could score one goal against Bafana and you'll be remembered for a lifetime.
For the rest of your life,
And especially with how difficult that tournament was. But, you know, he's been in good form, 10 goals, just one shy of the leader in the Scottish Premier League in terms of the Golden Boot race. You know, it's good form. I think the question is now, should we be talking about him? Should clubs in England, he came from Leicester City, should they be looking at it? Can he cut it in the Premiership? Does he need to pivot and go to the Championship, stay at Motherwell? Or what do you think, Langton?
Yeah, maybe for starters, I'm sure we all agree Tawanda Mashani says the hottest property that we have is Zimbabwean football. And the other time when we were coming back from Morocco, when we were at OR Tambo International Airport, sasangana mwe security pa airport angaona takafika maZimbabwe.
Yes.
The first thing akabvunza anzi, who is this guy who embarrassed our Mbokas?
And Mbokas is a big deal in South Africa right now.
But
he secured a move to Chicago Fire recently.
Look zvakaitwa na Maswanise. So I think this boy is now at his peak or nearing his peak.
But we're looking from Zimbabwe tinted spectacles because nezvatati tiri kuita kuAFCON and the way we're crying out for goals, that goal that he scored takasparkwa. But the question is Scottish Premiership whether nditutana na Celtic kana na Rangers ku-English Premier League kwacho or maybe kuna na France kuenda Marshall wakasparkwa here or warikusparkwa as much as us.
I think so. Because I think 2-3 days ago I was reading a story by BBC, but I think a week ago. This Celtic legend, so I tried interview. I told Zone it would be difficult for Mother to keep hold of, to retain Fanau, but even by January transfer paper. What do you recommend if you are a part of his advisory team, his management team? He's got a team that's supporting him. They're propping him up. He could potentially win the Golden Boot in Scotland. Does he see out the season, or if any of the big boys come knocking, or not the big boys, but teams outside of the Scottish Premiership or even in the Premiership come knocking, does he go or does he stay? What would be your advice to Tawanda?
For him, coming from one Tawanda to another Tawanda, kutongomudza kuti whoever chongouya achitongotiti contract rapa kapo kutongoenda, because if you look at my number of vanesa vambita ma top scorers ku Scottish Premiership vazhinji vacho avagarimo for the following season, vakatongoya pakatongoya any offer inenge yatongoya kuti ase kutongoenda, because look at him makore achiripo
23 years
and tokwanisa kuwana deal rekuchampionship toenda iko kune maclubs obva rekuchampionship obviously achatoya achida kuofa basa nechi kutongoenda ikoko, because competition yekuchampionship nemuscottish Premiership zvakati siyani. Kune maclubs obva if you look at Celtic
ndipi pamusoro Premiership kana Scottish Premiership kana Championship,
obvious English Championship
iri pamberi pescottish,
because even
if he got a deal to
Championship
it would be
be a good move, especially for a team that can challenge for the title promotion.
Because if you look at him, qualities zvese nechi anazvo, and if you look at last week, I remember same move yakangoita zvakangoti wana mbokazi achizomusumudza munzvenga nechi ndozvaakadzokorodza futi, and munhu wekuti and if you look at unozichi love yakarakidzwa neMother War, I think Mother War Zimbabwe panga iri kwaFCON, Mother War yafanira kunge ichitonamata every day dai Zimbabwe yanguita sei yangokasikira kudzokera padn mfano yadadzoka, because kubva zvaadzoka kubva kwaFCON ari kugohwesa, and they know kuti munhu wekuti ivo pachezvo vari kuziva kuti mari yedu mari yavo itori pache.
In the same vein also you are saying pakauya any offer ngaaende, but you are saying ane 10 goals and why not maybe akaita see out the season, probably he might reach 20 goals, then his value goes up, and also my bigger teams omoona,
because it is traditionally tikatarisa kaguras, it's very few players are able to move muna January and make an impact. The only argument you could probably make for that is maybe especially if it's a bigger team with a bigger profile, he has time to adjust ahead of the new season. And any personally, my Warriors colours, I would love to see him see out the season at Motherwell, because I think he's got a unique
score
opportunity
increase market value, to attract more attention.
But then when I guys muruti angapedza season ari kwandiri, what if akapedza ariko, then ipanopera season kana utadogadzira next season posha kana one club indasi
if he no hatisi kuti ngaapedze season asingagowe sei tuti ngaapedze season neform, if he can maintain the form that he has right now, if he hits 20 goals
but then murikuona zvikuitika izvozvizvi now paari panapa munhu achangobva kwaFCON, munhu wekuti he showed vanhu zvinhu zvakawanda paitambira maWarriors pepe, even akaona game time iri shoma nditi akarakidza vanhu kuti ane zvinhu zvaanokwanisa. So now
this is kutarisaka based on 3 games at AFCON. My scouts, my team ekuchampionship, my teams ekuEnglish Premier League, ekuFrance, or whichever leagues might be interested in him, wanonga achitarisaka form yake so far for Motherwell, that apana pawachazoti no akageza bafana
South Africa rakatowedzera interest kuma scouts nechi zvoti like Tawanda is saying, maybe it could be right kuti uchiri kupisa izvinezvi zvinogona kuzongodhakwa pamberi apo, then people forget about you, maybe anoona kuita ningi ebump form, but kuti akaona a good offer in January, like this legend where Celtic was saying kuti like this legend West Celtic was saying, but it would be difficult for Mother to retain him. Akawanachi offer, but it's good for him. You know, thinking a form he should see out the season.
So he stays until the end of the season.
From 18-19 goals, then what's better?
From a Tawanda to a Tawanda, stay or go in January.
He doesn't need science. All
right, so you guys, you can be part of the Game Changers podcast. You can hit us up in the comment section. Let us know your thoughts. Should Tawanda Maswani see the season out at Motherwell in Scotland? Currently just one goal behind the leading goal scorer in the SPL. So he's in with a chance of winning the Golden Boot. I think his price could probably skyrocket, and he could even get bigger teams. Tawanda insists, you know what? No time like at the press
about it.
Also, state out the Tawandas, Tawanda Chirewa, Tawanda Maswani. No, to talk professional football.
Kwesi.
Dead ball specialist.
All right. I can seal of approval now. Award winning. Anyway, let's come closer to home and look at what is happening in terms of our local premiership. Let's land in the city of kings and queens. And you know what? And Spakwa in got in the office, as I like to do, got the dailies, got a copy of the Chronicle, and it was just jumped at me like, because I'm a sports guy. I talk about that front page, straight to back page. And she, no house, no signature. And Mbeba, one of the key players for Highlanders over the last couple of years. I think most notably, I remember doing commentary during the Chibuku Super Cup last year, the match that they played with Scotland at Emagumeni. And he scored an absolutely fantastic solo goal. But, we're talking about AFCON. He missed AFCON. He was part of the training squad, but he had to withdraw. He's been dealing with a niggling knee injury, I think, for the last year or two. And that forced him to miss out on an AFCON. And reading this story, first of all, couldn't decide about both. But Akbara.
Firstly, big up to my sub-editors, Chronicle.
Our pizza, no signature.
It was good look. It was catchy. But unabvunza kuti zvoni saka angasina imba here nguva yese uyu Andrew Mbeba wacho. Angasina nditi kana anadzo asi aringoda kuti apiwe imwe.
For me, my initial reaction to it when I saw and read the story this morning was this is a player who believes in his own value. Whether you agree or whether Tawanda agrees or whether Boso agrees is a totally different story. But guys, I'm a free agent, right? And I've got pulling power. There's so much money in our football right now. We're talking about Scotland, the way they splashed money around last season. We're talking about Hard Rock FC, who've been very busy. Caps United look like they've got some money. I think we're going to talk about it later. Dynamos have got about 2.5 million from Sakunda. So, he'll be thinking, you know what? I must not rush, because we're going to talk about it as well. Athan Dovu, he was a stalwart for Highlanders as well last season in defense. He's gone. Head move. Diamonds. This year. We're getting
also many diamonds are sort of transforming.
Yeah, I think they're going back to basics. Going back to basics. I think under Jairo Shapiro, I think you think about players like, what's his name?
Lawrence Maspera.
Evans Katema, Mandiranga, and a couple of those guys. Yeah. So I think we need some fresh blood. I think those are some of the signings. But let's come back to.
Yeah, I think Highlanders.
Highlanders, yeah.
Andrew Mbeba has been so committed to Highlanders. faithful to Islanders, I think. Because Mbeba vakatanga kunetsa kudhara. I think vakatamba under 20 young warriors and Jalaina about 6 years ago, 7 years ago. He has been on top since then. My clubs
And he's still young, 24, 25?
25, 26, yeah. In my clubs, I don't know Yashinoka, Achidashi Mbeba, but Mbeba would stage Islanders.
Loyalty.
But
And
gentlemen-
don't not depend good as because Highlanders got in terms of tradition, is it every time whether to Babasa or you go there as a fan, whether you're going there to write a story or we're covering it for TV or radio, when you go to Baba Fields, the atmosphere and the culture and the passion
I think
by those fans is different.
It is that culture and passion and the atmosphere at Baba Fields. That player, pambacho unonakidzwa nayo yayi. But there will come a time ekuti unongwa kuti no.
Because this amuru tarezo zvikuzadza sowetu kana kuti kana atmosphere it doesn't pay the bills. And for Andrew, I think my conditions are set are right. Because if you look at Linus last season, pakangoya off. Afanya sitazo the Islanders haina zvimwe zvaichandi off.
Peter Mdu also left.
Peter Mdu also left and now yeah chance yake because if you look at mama players anga atemberana na America also left. The Mshori brothers also left. So akangona no ndogarire because if you look at Islanders izvo ndo club yetinenge chikudza kuti hatina mari hatina chimasalari anonga kuya.
But ndopasikanzwisisi because ndozvanandichedza kutaura because if you go to the Premier Soccer League, I think over the last maybe decade or so, every single year, the highest attendance on average
They get Baba Fields,
is Baba
Islanders,
Fields.
yeah.
So in terms of fan engagement, they're good. You know, this year, 2026, they're turning a century, 100 years old, rich history. You know, they're intertwined with the community in Bulawayo and the surrounding areas. Saka, is it the whole? Is there something wrong with the community model in this context of Zimbabwean football? Because we saw Dynamos have its own problems. Last season, in particular, before this injection by Sakunda, Highlanders.
We have said it a lot of times. You look at Highlanders, you look at Dynamos, Capes no be suppose Capes, I think they are owned by Farage, is an individual. And in a Marimas or no Capes, couldn't get good right on it. But Dynamos Islanders, they're still living in the past. And why this is to Islanders, we are also. To set the ground, Tinichaunga, Tinivan.
But can I just say the ground? Mari say.
But my players are now, my players are like Tawa is saying, my players are now wakufunga ne dumbu and wakukura.
But not
27. Uzingotambira muridzo ku Islanders kwekwe. Unosvika time yekuti guys ndambo kusave but ndadombo ntoro mari. Ndo time yasvika Mbeba manje. Akubodo mari.
And if you look at Islanders, actual
clubs just before, do you think clubs will be clamoring for Mbeba? I mean, what was going on? Because he said no house, no signature. This was directed at Highlanders, but surely. If you're Hard Rock, if you're Scotland, if you're Simba Bora, if you're Manika Diamonds, most
Tawanda, like I said, is a technical specialist, just like Andrew Mbeba. Andrew Mbeba is one of the best players in the Premier League when he's fit. He can play right back, he can play centre back.
No,
Andrew Zelzoni can attract the top teams.
No house, no signature. I get a response from the Highlanders. In particular, this weekend, Kanaya Scotland, Kanaya Moors, Kanaya Hard Rock, Kanaya Manika Diamonds, it's the does this condition still stand? Do you think he can get away with saying this to any club that comes for him right now? No house, no signature.
Probably I'm going to change pakata interest from Scotland. Probably I'm going for argument's sake 80,000. He can still buy. Maybe manga matalks sanabvunza zvonipa manga asina imba time yese kuzvoni michengeta ichingotitengera ingori imba already musanpe mari maybe.
And then coming to Islanders issue, Mr Tich, I think for EA as a player anogaro pasi unyasitaza kuti club yedu iri serious because over the past year Islanders have signed 3 coaches. And you as a player unopezera confused. Nas watamba ndakaindu mangwana watamba nda Peter de Jong. Next season urutamba under a new coach. So unopezera unyasobvunza kuti club ine kwayari kuenderi kana kuti tungoramba tiri pa level 1. And if you look at Andrew Mbeba, I think last season mid-season there was talk of him joining Moors zvasazongodhakwa last minute, and now pane pamba neoffer yeku-FC Platinum yadhakwa last minute Islanders zvichide zvati achiri contracted, and now izvozvi manje avaudza zvinhu zvaari kuda iye he knows what he wants and he knows kuti panozotanga season anenge afit nechi. So I think any club iri serious nebhora nechi vanokwanisa kungomupa Andrew Mbeba zvinhu zvaari kuda because iye chinhu chaari kungoda I think it's just a move away from Highlanders, a new environment for him, ongorakidza vanhu the quality that he has, and
if Highlanders meet
mademands ake anongovapa zvinhu zvavari kuda because ndiye one munhu aita lawyer kuHighlanders for the longest, akabva kumajuniors eHighlanders, he has always been there. Pakauya ana Scotland vanga nemari last year, I'm sure vakatotanga kutoti Mbeba first, Mbeba vadezani ndiri committed kuHighlanders vosdora wamavelas chikomera nechi, so now akunyatsoona kuti pane pamwe pekuti Mr Tich unyatsoona kuti loyalty pampachoka doesn't pay.
Let's stay panyaya your loyalty. I think over the last couple of seasons, especially maybe let's say last decade, we've seen these new teams come in, dominating and having a lot more money. We started with the platinum teams. Simba Bora came through Scotland. Now we're seeing Hard Rock do something similar. In this evolving football ecosystem that we have in Zimbabwe, is there any room for loyalty? I mean, Ndiriwe Dimbare, Ndiriwe Highlanders, Ndiriwe Cape United, but Ndiriwe Manika. I am going to stay at my club because I love my club. I think there's been a lot of conversation around that. Similar, Emmanuel Jalai, in terms of like, some sections of the fans saying we release you. You don't have to feel beholden to us. Is this a room for loyalty in our football?
Yeah, it depends with the situation, and it also depends with what you want as a player in terms of your career growth and opportunities. If you look at Jalai, Paidi won Scotland and Nemanika Diamonds last season, and he chose to stay Dynamos. That was the same time Angatanga breaker into the national team. Sky is out zone. If he moves to Scotland, Scotland, the owners or the powers that be, they are a demanding lot. One to the matters out tonight to the championship first season. And you see rotation at 100 Scotland. Probably would have played 10 or less matches, making him less attractive national team. So for Jalai, I think it was a good move for him. Because Dynamos Triangle is captain and also is now cemented his legendary status in Dynamos.
Three-peat, let's talk about that. Let's stay on Dynamos because there was a new executive that was brought in towards the end of last year, led by Vincent Tawanda, and we've now seen all of a sudden the corporate world coming back to Dynamos. It hasn't been officially announced, but we understand this year alone they are set for a sponsorship package of around 2.5 million from Sakunda. We've been a long-serving partner of Dynamos. I think last season they only got about $480,000 odd dollars. This is going to be spread across the first team, Division 2 teams, Academy, the women's teams, and even their. And I understand they're actually going to go and play in the CAF Confederation Cup. When you hear that 2.5 million, because I think if we go back to Scotland's debut season, Sakunda gave almost a similar amount of money to Scotland. Does this mean that Dynamos can now punch with the big boys in the transfer market? Because they've still been quiet despite all this money that they're supposed to have. And Genesis Mangombe now coming in as the head coach, is he the right man as well?
Yeah, I think firstly, kudos to the Dynamos executive for bringing back Genesis Mangombe. I think we all know the quality that he has as a coach.
But is he a winner?
Yeah, not in a way. But if you look at how he tries to give youngsters a chance, look at
as a builder.
Yeah, look at when he moved to Triangle. No one even knew about Munashe Bamara. I think except for a few people who have seen him play in Chitungisa and the like.
But Munashe Bamara had started playing under Luke Masomere before that.
Yeah, but he managed to change him into a big player.
Into an imposing player under Genesis Mangombe.
And I think he gave a chance to a number of players. Witness Shawi. He was one of the best players.
Is following him to Dynamos.
Yeah, and now he's coming back to Dynamos. I think he managed to revive his career, especially after that fallout with the Raiders.
Yes. At Yada, at Triangle. Those. What he did at Triangle, given the precarious position they were in when he arrived after Luke Masomere was shown the exit door, was commendable. I can't take anything. But Dynamos fans, as much, or even the ownership group, as much as they survived relegation, as much as they were relieved, trust me, they will still be wanting to be competitive. And that's where my question mark, I'm not questioning his capability as a coach. I'm saying, we've seen, I mean, I'm wearing my Man U jersey right now. We've been here where, yes, you can bring a coach. Ruben Amorim was a young coach, exciting, good tactics, did very well in Portugal, but, at Old Trafford, he looked out of his depth, and it wasn't just about the football. There's a lot of moving parts in terms of. That's what I want to sort of lean into, is in terms of he's been there before.
Yes, there's a reference point, Mr. Tich.
Yeah.
Because we are saying there's a connection between Mangombe and Chawonza, if you've noticed. When Chawonza was the vice chairman, he's the one who was supporting Mangombe to stay at Dynamos. Why? Because in 2023, Mangombe won the Chibuku Super Cup with Dynamos, is it? Yes. And he was trying to build a team. You could see even the midfield partnership of Makunike, Shandirwa, and Mudadi. You see, he was on to something, he was building something. And Chawonza was on record saying, if you are a coach and you are building, your team must be playing exciting football, or you must be winning. Because you can't not have both. But under Mangombe, Dynamos improve. So they've got belief that if given no time.
I'm with you. In terms of building, in terms of a long-term plan, is the right call. But I'm saying, do you think Dynamos fans are saying, you know what, Genesis Mangombe has come 2.5 million. After 3 years. Do you think those Dynamos fans? That's what I'm trying to unpack.
They should think so. Could Dynamos even compete? Because Dynamos is Dynamos.
You want them to think so, but they're not.
They want Dynamos to compete every season. Dynamos is Dynamos. But for a team that fought against relegation last season, to just come back the next season,
Guys, it's different how Dynamos are doing things this year. Last year, around this time, right at trials and won. It's different. This time, Varku sign our players.
But so, also,
no, last season, Mr. Tich. Last season, a number of players we're trying to impress Lloyd Chugoe, who Crest Ministries. Now, no, and if you look at my players that are linked to with my move to Dynamos, you've got the likes of Perfect Nyakwenda. I know Kuti along the way, but on a good day, he's a good player. We also what he did.
Start from somewhere.
You've got Prosper Kafela. I think one player Kuti now, I think he's ready for the big stage. And Anozia because one thing that I know for sure, Mr. Tich, my fans at Dynamos, patience are. But now, it was Muna coach and this is a relationship nation. Ni my fans, because you remember my days akaka ndopa chantre utkaka ingoma, and even they know good after my troubles esa wasangana na last season they need something to better say one bofara.
But let's not see run out from the fact to Dynamos. They were slow off the blocks. But my players are either like Mnashe Bamare. It could have been a good addition, but Vaganonoka because Marjakas were late, executive up when were late, coach of us up when we have to.
So, do you watching the time? Because obviously, season not my
players are Arimo. It's like Munum Trongo Dagu recyclage. My players and my players if you go out there, like I said, my stories are go out there. If you go out there, my players are go. My 21-year-old, my Ariko are not going to bore.
My teams, but Guras, I'm not going to go tip you, my players. Dynamos. Obviously, last season, like, it was a weird experience. Not just if you were a Dynamos fan, even as a journalist covering, because it looked, relegation looked very real for a large part of the season, and then towards the end they got it right, and just like they've done over the last 3 seasons, won the Chibuku Super Cup. Obviously, with this 2.5 million sponsorship deal that they are getting from Sakunda, they're likely to go back into the African safari. You know, what would be an acceptable improvement for you for Dynamos this season? I do to my fans. I don't watch that. Based on everything that we've heard so far, we don't know much about what they're going to do between now and when the season starts. But now, given that they survived relegation, they've got a bit of money, new executive, they've got a new coach. What are some of your expectations?
Let's break down facts, Mr. Tich. Tikashiti Maria we andita. Maria kawya late 1 andita. 2 executive vachi Dynamos akapoendwa futi late andita. 3 apana ma signings avaita ari so like wow wow signings avaita so far hapana. Saka fans should be reading and hearing about it, and so they should also manage their expectations. Team yakafighta relegation last season, and although yakawina hayo chibuku. So I think for Dynamos this year Maria Zouya and staff, coach adzoko anoda wacho mangombe chaonza respected administrator anoda apo pachairman. So this year is for stabilization. Probably they should not fight relegation. Afana kuipa kuura masaplas ne BP. This is
I was so BP.
So they should stay away from relegation for this season. Then we talk about it again January next year.
Was stability ndo chinja season. Kwangsina mari, kwangsina stability. Because if you look at mana umchinjiro wakaita coach last season, I think I said time was in any time kupedza season many 3 or 4 coaches amadedza amchita sei. And I think now vana coach mafans eDynamos akufana kutasira not in style of play, and they've got a coach who plays nozichi death by 1,000 passes rinonokwa. And I'm sure for Dynamos fans they should be patient, because it's a rebuilding exercise yakutanga patsva. Because I think kuna vama players anga ariko anga kauya Dynamos, but makanyatsotarisa vamwe vacho vanga variko, I don't think equality inofana kutambira Dynamos.
Yeah, Matumbari.
Remember, they've also lost Prince Tafremutsa, a good goalkeeper, Vusa Ngwenya, an upcoming talent. Saka, you can't expect too much from a team to try to zoka from relegation.
It won't be fighting on 2 fronts like last season. It was all fight on 3. Because mninge mune league. I know it's a long ask for Dynamos to win the league this season. Mune African Safari. They should try to make it to my group stages, because one mariningaka is where infana udzokoita se ebasira club, and also there's the Chibuku Super Cup.
4 in a row.
And also the Presidential Cup might also come, the Zifa Cup.
So apachada vamwana vese pakudana vanongaiziva kukosha kwebeji reDynamos rero. And I think for the new executive
maplayers edu achiruzere kukosha kwebeji reDynamos
achitangire kumaplayers only, zvotangira kumusoro kweexecutive. I think vamwana vari muexecutive wacho they should know the importance of that page kuti ibrand hombe. I think no, I think for Islanders
look at
Islanders
recently vakaita bonding session yavakaita and they invited legends awana ningi Alice Bunjira who scored 23 goals 1996 vachiva remind us on at some point team yakomana yatopisa zvokuti yatowina league ichirwana Dynamos ichita sei, handiti kuti vafana vazive kuti you are playing for Capes United.
Because Mr Tich, if you look at Dynamos, Islanders, Capes, those are the 3 big teams that tinadzo muno muZimbabwe indeed. And I think for the first 2, Dynamos and Islanders, they've been let down by the executive, because at times varikuisa vanhu vasingazivi kukosha kwema-institutions aya. For now, for Islanders machallenges avari kusangana nawo aya yekuti munozosvika papoint yekuti player inenge yakuti manda ndinoda imba kuti muwane signature yangu, havafanenge zviripo. Because for munhu akaita saAndrew Mbeba, I think ndiye munhu anofanira kugara uchizati ane contract yakareba, because ndiye munhu anofanira kuwanzira mari. And for Dynamos also they've got Emmanuel Jalai wekuti zvinhu zvinokasongomuka zvakachinja, because izvozvo resistance chicken in tier 1 vese varoda signature yake. And Dynamos they should try to make sure kuti vamukipa munhu iye
have to North Africa,
angachidiwa kwese
Europe,
so
Belgium.
Kuenda kwake papa semunhu anga ane contract yakaexpire 31 December. It says a lot about the executive alone, because amfanira kuti ma-star players yenyu mimi osvika pakuti ma-contracts anoexpire musina kubvira manegotiata nawo. And izvozvi zvimuda kutarisa zvekutaura new season for Islanders mari chaiyo havasati vaziva kuti vari kuiwana kuti paseason yada kutanga. Yes, paDynamos mari rinokwanisa kunge iripo, but vane here direction
ongotorawo Benjani wakapuwa wakadidirwa shuga na
maybe they wakatongoisa Benjani wacho opuwa mari nasi
aiwa sometimes unoona chikuti guys so
alright. But iye wacho as a coach, I think we also what happened pangari during that experiment against Platinum Stars, and obviously for Islanders knowing kuti one fan base yanga mchara nezvaye, I think apana vanhu vasiri patient pasipezwa mafans eDynamos naIslanders avadi ma-experiments.
But you know mazwana tawa pane this saying iri kunzi mazwana kusisina ma-coach kwane ma-main managers kuti ma-main kuti inini handikucoach estereki, I just manage you in dressing room. Benjani maybe a former Man City player, a former Warriors player, a former
he's been there at the highest level. He could be a manager.
It's not every former player anita a good coach. But it's not every former player anita a good coach for us. because I think for
Tazona
for no for iye wacho kuti
kuna tabo musendo.
South Africa. But anyway, let's stay with the Casablanca Premier Soccer League. Another team that obviously surprised us last season was Moors in terms of what they did. You know, first half of the season, 16 games unbeaten, ended up finishing runners-up. But very few people would have predicted that. And then you look at the off-season, some of the key players who were involved in that run. I think for me, most notably, Nigel Martina. I think he was their best player for me throughout the entirety of last season. Abubakar Moffat came through in mid-season. His quality was undeniable. And then you look at other players as well that they had Martin Mapisa. I think we're going to talk about him. He's since left and he's gone to Hard Rock FC, just like a lot of players. That's where Nigel Martina has gone. Moffat has gone to Scotland. But I want to talk about Tedious by coming through from Manica Diamonds. You know, he had a brief stint with the Warriors. Just played a handful of games with the Warriors. I think one of them was against South Africa. But, you know, he hasn't really seen the Warriors, especially under Baltimore Brito or even Michael Nice after and Coach Mario. When you look at it, Tawanda, replacing Mapisa by like for like, downgrade, upgrade, what do you make of this move by Moors?
It's a like for like signing, but I think Tedious Baye has got an upper end. He has played under Lloyd Samaita Mtasa before. During his stint at Greenfield, he was his first choice goalkeeper. And now, for Samaita, he's got a goalkeeper that knows what he wants and a goalkeeper that he can trust. Yes, for Martin, the relationship that was building on well. And for Tedious, I think this season is going to be a keeper to watch because they have also robbed in Tembo Chuma, one of the best goalkeepers coaches in the land. And for Munarku Manica Diamonds, where he was fighting for relegation for some part of the season, coming to Norton, it's a new club, new ambitions, but Arutamba under a coach who knows him and a coach who trusts him. I think it's a good move for the two, both Moors as well as the player. And for Moors, it has been a transfer season to forget because they lost some of their best players. You look at Abubakar Moffat, one of the key pillars in that Moors midfield, and also Nigel Martina. But they've managed to rope in Billy Verim on a permanent deal. And having Billy Verim around, I think it changes everything. Hopefully you link up well with Marceline Mlilo, who's also joined the club, as well as other Banda, who's also there. But for Moors, I think they need to do their business well.
I know they brought in
Reginald Shinemo also.
Do you think he can fill in the boots left by Martina? Does he have the quality? For
Reginald, he's more of a right back and the option also for the centre half. But I think they need to bolster their midfield. It's the midfield department that needs new reinforcements because they've lost out on Salif Chair who went, and they need to replace him. Maybe someone who's got the energy, someone who's got the legs to carry them forward. They also lost Abubakar Moffat, and that's one area where we could see Pacha needs could replace. Yes, they had Sergio Marambiwa before, they had Tinotenda Mshikambisi, they also had Marvin Mzoka, but zvakazenge zvachinja. And they need someone who's anokwanisa kufila gomba rinenge rasiwa na Bakare.
But if you know father Lloyd Mtasa, very unpredictable, and the moon wekuti pamato kuka something because before last season taskaziya na Sergio Murambiwa but akazowaziya last season wakutambira Moors. Saka I know with father you unearth Magma James atisingaziwe, but going back to Baye has always been a good goalkeeper. I think remember 2023 pawakaita second kumanika Diamonds behind Ngezi. Akatamba about 26 matches, I got about 15 clean sheets, 13 clean sheets. And was one of the best keepers. Uti angangora and around it. Zama paper mamajo tambutra zoni, people should go out there and do stories.
This is better award with journalists.
One vachu tamba bora nkunzeka asana apanda se anjara nezvawo. Antogo na kubata. He's a good goalkeeper. You see him. You know he's a good
and
goalkeeper.
Also Chara Noima goalkeepers here. I think Moors they need a third goalkeeper. Yes, they've got Francis Tiza, he's got the experience there, but he hasn't been a player who can't break out. KFC Platinum was a second choice. Kumo's last season was a second choice, and rotation ya ona Martin here I think someone do contributed Martin as a compete for the goalkeeper of the year award because he was also in the race, but IG one in OTG and got my clean sheets mashom and part of my games I go drop Martin but so Francis. I think father was supposed to be patient with Martin Ongombatisa Onichi and
besides Francis watch your eyes on the other wrong side of age.
Yeah, and Chinchilozo Mkwadza foot now he height because what you experience here now, I think my area of boss and Karachim Kanganis, so they need a third goalkeeper. We would said one competition between 10 years, but we know 10 years and then face to face. But you need someone who can keep a piece.
Okay. Then also open a midfield, they need one or two defensive midfielders plus an attacking midfield. But
any recommendations?
And also a striker. Bose Vason Feremba is left. Although Angas Natanga, Salif Chair, like we said, is also left.
I think
my recommendations, Mateo Gombo, my recommendations, I mean,
I think I always say kuti ma coaching ngambo famba chake ma players timbo na players ma ngambo tipa ma players manyoa kitaka kama tungone lao watangi ani kuma 10 years chingona.
I think we'll wind up because I the bora timbo fit but Mo's last season were a surprise package. They were an unknown quantity. Even their entry into the top flight was sort of low key. Now, with the noise that they made last season and finishing as runners up, how much pressure do you think? Are they going to be feeling any pressure to sort of replicate that, or they're just going to go back to just doing their business?
I think the danger with overperforming is you create more pressure for yourselves. If you look at Mo's, it was their first season in the top flight. Obviously, they were resourced, Mo's, their financial stable. But for number 2, obviously, can I only want to go to number 2 this term. Next term, obviously, not at number 1. Or maintain number 2. Because at number 3, you need to go one step back. So under pressure to either maintain number 2 or win the title. Both are number 2. So let's not run away from the fact that Mo's are now one of the top teams.
I think what they did to Ngoni and the atmosphere that they created, how to build like a culture. But I didn't change because right now we're just going to wrap up the show shortly. But we're talking about a team like Hard Rock, Division 1, but look at some of the best players from around the league. Even though I'm Fatwacho, even Anna Martina, we're going to Hard Rock. Can they? Because Jitwa Scotland last season, Jokuya Nemari, Jokuya Ne Pizzazz, Jokutengama players, some of the best players in the country from the previous season. Can it be replicated in Scotland? Can a Hard Rock replicate that?
Yeah, it depends, but also it has been proven in recent seasons that man can also buy a lot of things because my teams are in a league.
But man, you to America, but that's good.
So that money can buy a lot of things in football, especially locally. So the chances are high. Mono coach are right.
So can you handle a team of superstars? Because it's different from being coaching a club that has got, unity and purpose and direction.
But coach Dynamos at its West is better relegation or vice versa.
It's not different.
I rate him as a coach. Is not in questioning his ability because we can ignore. Okay, I will circle back and jump with the crisis management that he had to deal with at Dynamos and go back to his failed stint at Highlanders. From conversations. But that's what I say. From conversations that I had with people in the executive and people who were in that dressing room, he lost that dressing room because of his approach and the way he dealt. Sometimes if you've interrupted, he's a soft-spoken person, but sometimes he was trying to be a bit too bullish, and it didn't really work. So now I'm saying, personality-wise, can he handle having a Donald Mdadi, Manasseh Bamara, who is now like the next big thing in terms of...
Oh,
you know what? An owner who's splurging so much.
Yeah, maybe pressure. Pressure will be too much.
Can Kaindo handle all the different moving parts? Tawanda?
I think it will be difficult for him to handle that pressure in the first season, because knowing that if you look at season at Rupi in the Goras, it's almost 11 teams of the 18 that we have in the top line. They've got new coaches, and Pachatora Kututango build a style of play as a coach and trying to understand my players are now. Yes, we go pre-season here, but it's difficult. If you look at Simba Bora, what they did, it took them 2 years to win the championship, and it was different now because Scotland last season partly my players majinji angabva Simba Bora na Tawanda, and now much for Kaindo is different. He's got new players. My clubs are and he has got different egos in dressing room.
And I think the only team that can stop hard rock Cultural League is Scotland.
Because match
so is this what we're saying? Wait. Is this what we're saying? Zimbabwe cannot win a league. Chingoyane big rako ungotenga vanhu
tenga coach nema player anema players anzisa philosophy
wesa ma incentives nenge kinzana 800 per win.
What is the only team that can stop them? Is Scotland. 13 signings. What are they got? Gerard Beg.
I know. One is but is one before. You can say took fighter for title, but realistically, they can't go achieve an achieve. I think Cape's it's a top 4. It's a top 4 team.
Don't to say just as we close off. Don't to say hard rock. Haina history, haina tradition, haina anything. Ingori nema resources. Yaunza coach anemkurumbira, yatenga ma players anemkurumbira, and then the only thing the team that can stop them is team yakapromoted last season Scotland, which mirrors that. And I'm saying now we have a Caps United, right? A Caps United that is 50 years old, 51, 75. So, in a tradition, Cup Kings, 96 waka winner, 2004 waka winner, 2016 waka winner. Wait, no, to that, one coach Mushinu, right? Chiragui. One resources.
One players.
So, but you are still putting Antwerp to win.
I'm saying, pane mari ga 2000, pane level investment and kana level mari aiswa andika. Yatrugona yakasko Scotland last season here. It was out of this world. In terms of our own league standards andika. Ine squatona mapesa futhi.
Ani kwanisa Scotland mapesa.
Obvious
my players machinji ari kwekwe vamwacho they've played under him, but panashim timba nyuka
mapesa is also called national team
ana knowledge nana kama
munhu wekuti
saka ane pekutangira imba itongori pawindo level pane few areas dzanguri pane bit shit
abora richadakidza gore rero guys,
but don't rule out Caps and also chicken wing because
kuna njira ya futu I can promise you this. I can promise you this, guys. Every week, twice a week, we'll be coming here. We'll have different media protectioners from the Zim Paper Sports Hub. This week, we're joined by award-winning journalist Langton Nyakwenda. Thank you for your insights. Hansi, my coach, Fambai. My players, Hansi, Nindo with my awards 5 times. So that's a tip for aspiring young journalists. If you want to make it to Google, Fambai. That's a word from Godas and Tawanda. I'm sure you're excited to Bora February. Yeah,
fireworks because my teams except for one team Ruba Marundera. As you have to reach, but at least yes, I know 7 my players.
All right. And on that note, it's a wrap of this first edition of the Game Changers podcast for 2026. It is a show that is brought to you by Zim Paper Sports Hub. We'll be having our conversations with the guys behind the pen, the guys behind the cameras, the guys behind the mics, as we share our insights from our different interactions that we have with teams and players. And yeah, it's about me, it's about you, but most importantly, it's about the beautiful game.